Mary. Mary, Mary, Mary. How we doing? Thanks for coming. Karen H., thanks for coming. Just going to do a couple of quickies. Like my pictures. Hi, well, Lisa. Okay, there was a couple in here that I missed yesterday. Let's find them really quick. Life on 54th Street. How about that one? Page 77. Hi, Eva. Perfect. Perfect, hon. I'm glad. Maybe you'll fall asleep. Here's the house we're reading about. This is just going to be short, okay? Carolyn has Rosalita Marie coming on at 8 o'clock for cleaning tips. So I thought in the interim, I'll read a couple short stories. Life on 54th Street. With 22 kids living on their street, they never had to look for playmates. Hi, Justina. This is by Rosemary O'Grady. The house where our family grew up was built in the latter part of the 1800s by a man who was a senior vice president, hi Sherry, of a local chemistry factory in Niagara Falls, New York. During the Great Depression, he sold it to our newly married parents. Counting the cellar and the attic, the house had 4 floors and 14 rooms. And every square inch of that house was used for something. Our house wasn't so special because of how many rooms it had or how big it was. That was important, but what made it special were the memories that came with its grandeur. My parents raised 5 girls and 3 boys in that house. With that many children, memories abound. Bless Mom, she had 5 children in 5 years. At least three were in diapers at a time, so she was a very busy lady. Dad worked 2 jobs just to support his ever-growing family. By the time I was 9 years old, 3 more children had been added to the family. In those days, 54th Street had only 6 houses on it. Those 6 houses had a total of 22 children. That meant we had a lot of playmates. All 22 of us took advantage of that. Of the 22 children, 14 were cousins. It seemed like we were one big happy family. There were plenty of fights, but in the end, we always made up until the next time. Until the next time, that is. Our house was the largest on the block, so it was where the children gathered most of the time to play. There was plenty to do and plenty of room to do it in. Our front porch was the scene of many plays. Usually it would start out with 1 or 2 girls around 10 o'clock in the morning. By 10:30, all the girls in the neighborhood were involved in the plays on the front porch. The boys play with the girls, Not on your life. We would find props in our attic, and sometimes the neighbors would bring them over. Oftentimes, when things didn't go the way someone wanted, a player would get mad and leave with whatever prop or props she had brought. Get my sip of my coffee. That would be the end of the play until the next time. Our backyard was always full of neighbors' children. We had a swing set, slide, and teeter totter. Our house was separated from our cousin's house by a chain link fence, and we would play badminton using the fence as a net. In our cousin, hi LMN. In our cousin's family, there were 6 children. We each claimed a cousin that was our very own playmate. The youngest in my family was lucky. He had 2 because the youngest of our cousins were twins. The attic was another place that we used as a play area. We were allowed to free reign up there as long as Dad wasn't sleeping. He worked shifts. So 2 out of 3 weeks, he could play up there if we wanted. We could play up there if we wanted to. There were boxes and boxes of clothes that we could use to play dress up, and we often did. At our house, it was never all play and no work. It was such a large house, we all had to do our share to keep it clean. Routine and discipline were the norm. Mom and Dad saw to it that we followed the routine strictly, or discipline would surely follow however they saw fit. We each had to do our part in helping out with the cleaning and upkeep. Each week, Mom would post a chore board that we had to follow. So as not to be too boring, the chores were alternated each day. From about the age of 7 on, we had to do whatever chore was assigned to us that day. One day it would be sweeping the floors. The next day it would be setting and clearing the table. The next day was washing the dishes. The next day would be drying the dishes. If the youngest was assigned to wash or dry the dishes, he or she would more often than not have to stand on a chair. Hey, Henny. Lexi's good, Henny. You want to see her? Hey, Lex. Lexi. Lex. Lexi. Why is she not hearing me? I think she's down the hall. But she's great. Thanks for asking. The only reason we got out of doing assigned chores was sickness. We kids all caught whooping cough at the same time, so all of us were quarantined together. We had no chores then for about 3 weeks, but no visitors either. Dad said he was never so lonely. Tradition also played a large role in our family. Christmas at our house was full of tradition. Every Christmas, Mom would start a month ahead preparing for the holidays. She prepared many cookies and pies and put them in our huge chest freezer for the day. We got our share beforehand, of course. Mom always decorated our mantle in the entrance hall, the same general way each year. It didn't vary by much. I'm trying to read this thing here. I don't know if it goes by with this story or not. Dad worked at a local chemical factory, and every year the factory held a party for the children of the workers. Dad played Santa Claus for many years. He gave out gifts to about 100 children each year. He would keep his suit handy and give candy to the cousins and neighborhood children too. Christmases were always wonderful. We didn't always get what we wanted, but there was always the gift of love. The house is gone now. It gave way to progress in the late 1960s. It served us well. The whole street is now a parking lot for the factories that surround the area. but the memories of that house will remain forever. Here's country things a little. Hey, Christine, here's a little illustration of a stove, hearth. It says, probably no material object has been more closely associated with the heart of the home than the old coal and wood fueled kitchen range, around which food was prepared, body warmed, and soul nourished by family fellowship. Wow, that had a lot of stuff. A warming on the top, an oven, and then a firebox, an ash pit, the bake oven, hot water reservoir, and then on the bottom a soot clean out. Look at all that. It is sad, Karen. That would be a lot of work, wouldn't it? Now we just go and turn our burner on. Flashback fun. The classic green bean casserole recipe was created by Campbell's Soup employee Dorcas Riley in Dorcas, Dorcas Riley in 1955 and became a Thanksgiving favorite in the 1960s when Campbell's placed the recipe on its cream of mushroom soup label. That's been around for a long time, hasn't it? Okay, let's see. Here we go. Here's a little Christmas story. Painted pigtails, fake ponies, and the punishment chair. Life was full of adventures and delights, and the occasional course correction. This is by Richard Lester. Here's a picture of him getting a photograph on a pony. That was so popular back in the day. If home was truly where the heart is, then my heart still resides in Willimantic, Connecticut, even though I left there as a child more than 65 years ago. It was in April 1945 when my mom brought me home from the hospital to my grandmother's house. Hi, Sherry M. Did I say hi? I think it was the other Sherry. My dad was not anywhere near my hometown when I was born. Instead, he was preoccupied as an assistant machine gunner racing across Germany in a Sherman tank on the way to the Czechoslovakian border. Somehow, on that momentous day, he received news of my birth while on the battlefield. When he returned home that summer, my dad took advantage of every opportunity to make up for lost time with me. I looked fondly at the old photograph of the two of us on Main Street in Willimantic at a time when a dozen fresh donuts cost 16 cents. Do you? Yes, Karen, there's so many back in the days, right? Kids on these ponies. There's even one of me. That's weird. I'm not that old. My dad loved baseball, especially Ted Williams and the Boston Red Sox. However, no matter how hard he tried, he could not stoke a similar passion in me, even though he invested in my very own baseball uniform. My passion was reading. As far back as I can remember, I have always been an avid reader. When I think back on the Christmas holidays in my early childhood, I think about Ralphie's parents in the movie A Christmas Story. My old man was up all night on Christmas Eve. Once I was sound asleep in my bed, he went to work in the living room, setting up electric trains, parking big toy trucks under the tree, and enjoying every minute as he prepared for the big event just a few hours away. Before I went to bed, Mom and I had put out cookies and milk for Santa. Christmas morning, the cookies and milk were gone, replaced by a myriad of presents under the tree. To this day, it's a mystery as to who ate the cookies and drank the milk. Dad? Mom? Santa? My mom enrolled me in St. Joseph's parochial school when I was 5 years old. I can't be sure, but I think I may have been a real handful for those poor nuns. Minor infractions might result in a ruler across the knuckles. However, one day in second grade, I apparently set the record for a major infraction at the school. Judy Hanna sat at the desk in front of me. Gosh, was she ever pretty? I wondered how I could attract her attention. Those were the days before ballpoint pens, and every desk had an inkwell along with a bottle of blue ink at the upper right-hand corner. One day I noticed that Judy had the most attractive pigtails, which conveniently came down to the level of my desk. I am not going to admit any wrongdoing in public, even to this day. However, what I did was beyond what a nun's ruler could correct. My mom was summoned to the school, and before long, I was back at home for the day, sitting in what my parents referred to as the punishment chair. I wonder what Judy's mom thought when she arrived home with dark blue pigtail tips. They'd probably have to cut that off, wouldn't you think? My hometown today looks nothing like it did back in the glory days of the 1950s. Modern supermarkets have replaced the A&P as well as the small mom and pop grocery stores like Rothblatt's and Swanson's. Rothblatt's Grocery on Main Street was my favorite weekend destination. Mr. Rothblatt always let me have a cookie from his cookie bins at the front of the store. I also remember his store because this was another place from which I was delivered back home to the punishment chair. It seems that one day I did not wait for Mr. Rothblatt to offer me a cookie. I just went in and took one. My grandmother loved taking me to the drive-in on a Friday night. My parents apparently needed a mental health break from rearing their only child. What a blast that was. We even ate pizza at the drive-in. Then, when we arrived back at Nana's house, her sister would scold her for keeping me out so late. My parents were perfectly fine with not having to pick me up until the next morning. As I think back on my childhood in that very special hometown, I remember accompanying my dad one Saturday afternoon to watch Alan Ladd in Shane at the Gem Theater. Dad loved Westerns, and I loved cowboys. My ultimate childhood Western adventure occurred when one of the many traveling photographers arrived in town with a real live pony. Oh boy, I wasted no time getting into one of those many cowboy outfits, and off I went, again with Nana, in the rumble seat of her Model A Ford. That adventure turned out to be as exciting as watching Shane. Apparently, the photographer was better at taking pictures than he was at cinching saddles. Once atop my steed, I felt myself slowly sliding to the side of the pony, and I ended up on the ground. I remember dusting off my chaps and swaggering back for a second take, this time with saddle firmly cinched. The next year, we played it safe, and I rode a fake pony off into the lens of a large box camera, waving my sombrero, much like the Lone Ranger did on television while riding Silver. Looking back now, 65 years later, what I feel in my heart can only be attributed to those good old days growing up with my family in our hometown of Willimantic, Connecticut. Some memories never fade. Okay. Bye. Bye, Karen. We're leaving here in a couple minutes anyway. Good. I'm glad you liked it. Here, see a picture of baby Richard right here. Where'd it go? Right here. And I'll read a little poem and then we'll be done, okay? For right now. Because we got Rosalita coming on for her cleaning tips. This is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evenings of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Hey, cats, been missing you, girl. And here's the poem, Robert Frost. Yes, definitely know that poem. Yep. Cats, don't be leaving us now, lady. Okay, I'm going to head out now and see y'all at Carolyn's. See what Rosalita's got going for us, okay? Thanks, guys, for coming by. Love y'all. Bye.